I got a call from my son. Your beach house and car are sold. We're leaving tomorrow. Flush face, I smiled and replied, I understand. But you forgot something. He asked, what are you talking about? I laughed out loud because the house he sold was actually beach with umbrella. You know, I was 67, a widow, and my son, Lionel, thought I was too old and naive to manage my own life. He even tried to sell my property right out from under me, convinced I was past my prime. But what he didn't know, I was already 5 steps ahead, and his greedy little scheme was about to spectacularly implode. It was a cloudy Monday morning, typical Williamsburg weather, but I still took my coffee out to the porch, wrapped in an old wool cardigan. I watched the wind whip leaves across the yard of the house Owen and I had shared for 37 years. Now, it just felt too big, too empty. Then, the phone rang. Lionel. My son rarely called just to chat. It was usually an agenda, another rational suggestion for improving my life. I tried to keep my voice light, energetic, anything to avoid his comments about me sounding depressed or weak. Good morning, Lionel, I said. Mom, are you up yet? His impatience was palpable. I need to stop by your place this afternoon. There are some things we need to discuss. What matters, dear? I asked, already bracing myself. Just financial matters. His tone belied his words, definitely urgent. I'll be at your place around 2. And just like that, he hung up. I sighed, taking a sip of cold coffee. At 67, I felt perfectly healthy and sane. But my 42-year-old son, he seemed to think otherwise. Ever since Owen passed away 5 years ago, Lionel had started treating me differently. At first, it was subtle, speaking louder, slower, as if I'd suddenly gone deaf or forgotten English. Then he began explaining the simplest things, how to use an ATM, how to write a check, how to set an alarm clock. Things I'd been perfectly capable of doing for 5 decades. I went inside, the urge to clean kicking in. I felt this pressure to look immaculate, to make sure there wasn't a single thing Lionel could find to worry about my condition. This house was my pride, 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, a big kitchen, a garden I tended myself. Owen and I bought it when Iris and Lionel were little. So many memories lived in these walls. But every year since Owen left, the house just felt heavier, emptier. As I made the bed, my gaze fell on our anniversary photo. Owen's eyes, full of the same tenderness as the day we met. Rose, you're the strongest woman I know, he used to tell me. I wondered what he'd say now, seeing how his son treated me. Promptly at 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Lionel, always punctual. I opened it to find him standing next to Veronica, my sister-in-law. They were an odd pair. He, tall and thin, perpetually worried. She, petite, sharp-eyed, a smile rarely touching her thin lips. Mom. Lionel gave me a quick, assessing hug. You look good. Veronica baked you a blueberry pie. Veronica handed me the container. No sugar, she stated, as if doing me a monumental favor. We're watching your health. I thanked her and led them into the living room. While Veronica fussed with the teacups, Lionel paced, scrutinizing every corner. Mom, how long ago did you call the plumber? There's a stain on your ceiling in the hallway. Looks like a leak. There's no leak, Lionel. I tried to keep my voice calm. It's the shadow from the tree outside. It's always been there. Are you sure? He frowned. I can get my man to check it out. You know, little problems turn into big expenses if they're not fixed in time. I just nodded. Arguing was pointless. For the past year, he'd already called an electrician, a carpenter, a gardener, all of whom assured me nothing was wrong with the house. Finally, we sat down. Lionel pulled a folder from his briefcase. Mom, I want to talk about your finances. He used that tone, the one he used with his 10-year-old daughter. I checked your bank statements for the last 3 months, and I'm concerned about some of the transactions. My muscles tensed. I'd never given him access to my accounts. How did you get my statements, Lionel? He faltered for a second. That's not important. What is important is that you spend too much on things you don't need. Like, why did you send $500 to that online store last month? It was a gift for Faye, I replied, anger coiling in my gut. A bicycle for my granddaughter's birthday. Mom, $500 is too much for a baby gift. Besides, Faye already has a bicycle. It's a gift for my granddaughter, Lionel. And no, she didn't have a bike. The one you and Veronica gave her last Christmas was a tricycle. She's 6 now, she's outgrown it. Lionel exchanged a look with Veronica, and I knew what they were thinking. Poor old Rose, she's confused about the facts. Anyway, Lionel continued, ignoring me. I think you need help managing your finances. Since Dad died, your spending has become less predictable. What do you mean? I tried to keep my voice steady. Well, like that cruise you booked last year. $700 for a week on a ship. That's just reckless. I took a deep breath. Lionel, that cruise was a gift from me to Iris and her family. We had a wonderful time. Besides, I spent my money that I made with your father. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Mother. He lowered his voice, like explaining to a child. You can't just throw money around. Who knows how many years you have left to live? You've got to think about the future. What future, Lionel? I asked, every word a needle in my skin. The one where I sit in my house, afraid to spend a dime without your permission? Veronica coughed. Rose, dear, we're just worried about you, she said with fake concern. Lionel and I often talk about how hard it must be for you, alone in this big house. Maybe you should think of something more appropriate for your age. I stared at them both, the realization hitting me like a cold wave. They wanted me to sell the house. The house that was probably the most valuable asset in my portfolio, as Lionel liked to call it. I'm doing just fine in this house, I said firmly. And I don't plan to sell it. No one's talking about selling right now, Lionel said quickly, though his eyes screamed otherwise. But you should start thinking about it. The real estate market is booming. What about the beach house? Veronica intervened. Have you been there once in the last 2 years? The beach house was Owen's and my sanctuary. We bought it the year before he died, planning to spend our retirement there. But fate had other plans. I rarely went after he left. Too many memories. No, but that doesn't mean I want to sell it, I replied, knowing that wasn't entirely true. Lately, I had been thinking about selling it, but not because Lionel thought it was a rational decision. Mom, the cabin is just sitting idle, losing value. You pay taxes, insurance, utilities. It's all money down the drain. I'll think about it, I said, the only way to shut him up. Lionel nodded, satisfied, at least outwardly. There's something else. He pulled another document from the folder. I spoke to our family lawyer, Mr. Burton. He thinks you should get a power of attorney in case if you need help making important decisions. The blood drained from my face. Power of attorney. For you, I assume. It's just a precaution, Mother. Lionel tried an unconvincing smile. You're not getting any younger, and sometimes you have to act quickly, like selling a house or a beach house. Not necessarily. Veronica interjected, missing my sarcasm. But you have to admit, Rose, it would be easier if Lionel could help you with paperwork and banking and such. I looked at them both, trying to pinpoint when it all went wrong. When did my smart, caring boy turn into this controlling man who saw his mother only as a burden and potential inheritance? After Owen died, I felt lost. We'd been together for 43 years, and then he was just gone. A heart attack, so fast I didn't even say goodbye. In those first months, Lionel was a support. He helped with the funeral, the paperwork, Owen's things. I was grateful. But then, something shifted. He started taking an increasing interest in my finances. Innocent questions at first. Am I paying my bills? Do I need help with taxes? Then came the advice, where to invest, what expenses to cut. And now? Bank statements and power of attorney. I don't think I need a power of attorney, Lionel, I said firmly. I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs. Mom, it's just insurance, he insisted. No one's saying you can't make decisions, but what if you get sick? What if something happens to you? Then I'll contact you, I replied. Or Iris. Lionel's face tensed at the mention of my daughter. He'd never hidden his opinion of Iris's life choices, as he called them. Choices that led her to a humble life as a gardener in a botanical garden instead of the corporate career he deemed worthy. Iris, he snorted. Mom, she's barely managing her finances. How can she help you? Iris is doing fine with her life. A wave of anger rose within me. She's happy. Can you say the same? Lionel looked as if I'd slapped him. Veronica put a hand on his shoulder. "We're not here to discuss Iris," she said coldly. "We're talking about your well-being, Rose." "No, you're talking about my money." I stood up. "I think we should end this conversation." Lionel stood too, his face flushed. "Mom, you're being irrational. I'm trying to help you." "I didn't ask for help, Lionel," I said quietly. "And I certainly didn't give you permission to check my bank statements. How did you get access to them in the first place?" He faltered, mumbling something about Mr. Burton helping him. "Mr. Burton had no right to give you information about my accounts without my consent." My resolve solidified. "I'll call him tomorrow." "There's no need to bother him," Lionel quickly said. "I was just trying to make sure you were okay. You so rarely share the details of your life with me." "Because it's my life, Lionel," I met his gaze. "And I'm going to live it as I see fit." The rest of their visit passed in strained silence. Veronica pretended to enjoy her tea. Lionel flipped through a magazine, faking indifference. Half an hour later, they left, leaving an untouched blueberry pie and a promise to continue this conversation later. When the door closed, I leaned against it, taking a deep, shaky breath. My heart pounded like I'd just run a marathon. I wasn't used to confronting Lionel. Usually, I just nodded, agreed, avoided conflict. But something was different today. Maybe it was the brazen attempt at a power of attorney, or his condescending remarks about Iris, or just the cumulative effect of years of putting up with his controlling behavior. I walked into the living room and picked up a picture from the mantelpiece, Owen and me, the day we bought this house. So young, so full of hope. "What would you do, Owen?" I whispered, tracing his smiling face. I already knew the answer. Owen always encouraged me to be strong, independent. "You're not just my wife, Rose," he'd often say. "You're a separate person with your own dreams and desires. Don't ever let anyone, not even me, tell you how to live your life." The next morning, I woke up with an unexpected lightness. The previous day, despite the unpleasantness, had awakened a long-forgotten resolve. Over coffee, I looked through my planner and saw an upcoming visit to Iris. My mood instantly improved. Iris was the complete opposite of her brother. Where Lionel was calculating and ambitious, she was spontaneous and enthusiastic. Where he sought material success, she sought harmony and joy in simple things. I loved both my children, but in recent years, it was Iris who brought me true warmth. I packed quickly, deciding to go early. Visiting Iris always lifted my spirits, and today I needed that boost. The botanical garden where she worked was a 20-minute drive. As I entered, the familiar scent of flowering plants and moist earth enveloped me. I knew I'd find her in the rose garden, her favorite part, the one she tended with special affection. And there she was, bent over a bush, carefully trimming wilted buds. In her wide-brimmed straw hat, gardening gloves, and simple linen dress, Iris looked so natural, so peaceful. Her blonde hair, tied back in a ponytail, glowed in the morning sun. "Mom," she exclaimed, seeing me. "You're early." She shed her gloves, rose, and hugged me. She smelled of earth, roses, and something fresh that always made me think of youth. "Thought I'd catch you at work," I smiled. "Do you mind?" "Of course not. Just finishing this section." "Wait a minute, and we can go for tea." I sat on a bench, watching her deft, confident movements. Years of experience, and so much love in her touch. It was hard to believe Lionel had once scoffed, "How can you spend 4 years in college just to end up digging in the dirt?" I just pressed my lips together then. Now, watching her, I saw how right she was to follow her calling. A few minutes later, Iris finished, putting her tools away. "Come on, Mom. They have fresh blueberry pastries in the cafeteria today." We walked through the garden. Iris was truly herself here. Staff greeted her by name. Visitors stopped to ask about plants. Settling at a corner table with herbal tea and muffins, Iris looked at me carefully. "Is something wrong, Mom? You look like you've decided something for yourself." I always marveled at her ability to read me. Lionel only saw what he wanted to see, but Iris noticed what was lurking beneath the surface. "Lionel came by yesterday," I sighed, "with Veronica." "Oh." Iris frowned slightly. "What did they want this time?" I recounted the conversation, Lionel's attempt to get power of attorney, his persistent offers to sell both houses. Iris's face grew more serious with each word. "This is out of line, Mom," she said when I finished. "He has no right to interfere in your life like this." "I know. And yesterday was the first time I really let him know it." Iris raised an eyebrow. "You did? What did you say?" "That it's my life, and I'll live it as I see fit." I felt a surge of pride remembering my firmness. Iris reached out and squeezed my palm. "I'm proud of you, Mother. I know how hard it is for you to stand up to Lionel. He's always had a way of pushing people around." After tea, Iris suggested we walk to the greenhouse to see her new orchid collection. We talked about everyday things, her work, my classes, the news. "How are Brad and Faye?" I asked as we entered the warm, humid greenhouse. Iris's face brightened. "Great. Brad's on a big project now, electrifying a new industrial complex. He's in charge of the whole electrical system there. You know, he got all these special permits last year, and now he's literally in demand. Factories, new buildings, everyone wants him." She said it with genuine pride. "And Faye? She won the school science competition last week. Just like me, she loves plants." I smiled, picturing my granddaughter studying leaves. "I need to come visit you all. I haven't seen Faye and Brad in a while." Actually, Iris stopped in front of Purple Orchids, but looked at me instead. "I wanted to invite you over for dinner tonight. We have some news we'd like to share." There was an excitement in her voice that intrigued me. "Of course, I'd love to come. Something good, I hope." "Very," Iris smiled mysteriously. "But the rest is for dinner. Be there at 6. Brad will be making his signature lasagna." After the greenhouse and the new Japanese rock garden, I headed home to get ready. At 6 p.m. sharp, I parked in front of the modern Brooklyn Heights apartment complex. It was impressive, tall towers of glass and concrete surrounded by green spaces. Iris and her family had recently gotten a mortgage on an apartment here, and honestly, I still hadn't quite gotten used to the idea that my daughter, who chose such an unprofitable profession, lived in one of the city's most prestigious neighborhoods. Faye met me at the front door, flying out as soon as she saw my car. "Grandma," she rushed into my arms. "Come quickly. Daddy is making lasagna, and I helped with the salad." I hugged her, marveling at how fast she was growing. At 6, Faye was a carbon copy of Iris at that age. Same lively brown eyes, same blonde hair, same boundless energy. We took the elevator to the 10th floor. As the door to apartment 104 opened, the scent of Italian spices and freshly baked bread enveloped me. Brad came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel, tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped blonde hair and kind eyes. He always reminded me of Owen's younger brother. "Rose," he hugged me. "Good to see you. How was your trip?" "Fine, thank you, Brad. It smells delicious." "I hope it tastes good." He grinned. "Faye, show Grandma your new drawings while I finish dinner." Faye pulled me into the living room, where a gallery of drawings covered the coffee table. While she enthusiastically explained each one, I looked around. It was a spacious, bright apartment with panoramic windows overlooking the city park. Modern furniture, minimalist design, but full of personal touches, family photos, books, travel souvenirs, children's crafts, live plants in every corner. It had an atmosphere of love and comfort that was sorely lacking in Lionel and Veronica's perfectly furnished, but cold, home. Iris soon joined us, having changed into a simple house dress. "Faye, go wash your hands before dinner," she said to her daughter, then turned to me. "Thanks for coming, Mom. Brad and I can't wait to tell you our news." Dinner was truly great. Brad's lasagna deserved all the credit. The conversation flowed easily. Faye talked about school, Brad joked about electricians, Iris shared garden stories. I watched them, deeply grateful for this part of my family. Sincere, loving, real. After dinner, Faye begged her father to play a board game, so they settled into a corner, leaving Iris and me to clear the table. "So," I said, helping her load the dishwasher. "What's your news?" Iris glowed with happiness. "Remember I told you there's a great apartment in our complex? It's on the 9th floor, right below us." One bedroom, studio kitchen, a terrace with a park view. She paused, then added with obvious excitement, Brad and I were thinking, maybe you'd like to move there? To be closer to us, to Faye. I looked at her in surprise. Move here? Yes. Iris took my hands. Mom, it's a brand new complex with everything you need. Stores, cafes, a fitness center, even a small clinic and pharmacy. And a park right outside the window. And we'll be right next door, just one floor up. I was so surprised, I didn't answer right away. But Iris, it's very expensive, and I have a house. A house that's too big for you alone, she said softly. And one that requires constant upkeep. Think how nice it would be to have no worries about a leaky roof or clogged pipes. Everything new, modern, comfortable. Brad, noticing our serious conversation, left Faye with the game and came over. Had Iris told you about our idea yet? He asked with a smile. Rose, this really is a great place. I've seen this apartment. It's not as big as ours, but it's very cozy and thoughtfully designed. A real gem. But how could I afford an apartment like that? I asked. Even if I sell the house. The house and the beach house together are worth a lot more than this apartment, Brad explained. You could buy it without a mortgage and still have money left over. I thought about it. I'd resisted selling the house before, especially when Lionel suggested it. But now, coming from Iris and Brad, and not just selling, but starting a new chapter with a part of the family that truly appreciated me, it sounded tempting. Let me show you. Iris pulled a glossy booklet from a drawer. The pages showed modern, bright apartments, stylish furniture, beautiful views. Then she showed me a plan of the complex. Park, pond, bike paths, cafes, stores, amenities. And here is our apartment, she pointed. And here's the one on the 9th floor we're talking about. I studied the booklet, and with each page, the idea grew more attractive. Living in a modern apartment without the worries of maintaining a big old house, being close to Iris, Brad, and Faye, having access to all the complex's infrastructure. And, importantly, disposing of my property as I chose, not at Lionel's behest. That's very tempting, I admitted, but I need time to think about it. It's a big decision. Of course, Mother. Iris hugged me. We just wanted you to know about the possibility. Brad and I have been thinking about it ever since we saw the ad for that apartment. Imagine how great it would be. Faye could come over after school, we could have dinner together, go to the park. And no Lionel telling you what to do and how to do it, Brad added with a slight chuckle. Faye wrinkled her nose when she heard her uncle's name. Uncle Lionel is always so serious, she said with childlike candor. And Aunt Veronica never really smiles. Faye. Iris tried to look stern, but I saw her laughing. Don't talk about relatives like that. But it's true. Faye insisted. Grandma, if you live near us, we can see each other every day. Looking at my granddaughter's enthusiastic face, I felt something warm blossom in my chest. Maybe this really was what I needed. A new beginning next to people who truly loved me. Not for what I could give them, but just for what I was. I'll seriously consider your offer, I said. And it was true. And I'll call a realtor tomorrow to see what my house and beach house might be worth. Iris glowed and Brad nodded approvingly. The rest of the evening passed in a warm family atmosphere. Faye and I played chess. I let her win. Brad showed pictures of his new project, and Iris shared her plans for a small garden on their patio. When it was time to leave, I felt a lightness, a peace of mind I hadn't had in a long time. On the way home, I couldn't stop thinking about Iris's proposal. Brooklyn Heights looked impressive, modern, comfortable, with excellent infrastructure. To live close to my daughter and granddaughter, to see them every day, to be a part of their lives. The thought filled me with joy. And yet, the decision to sell the house where I'd spent most of my life with Owen wasn't easy. So many memories, so many stories. But maybe it was time to move on, to start a new chapter, leaving the past behind, keeping only the memories in my heart. The next morning, I called Hugo Prescott, the realtor Owen and I had worked with when we bought the beach house. Hugo was known for his attention to detail and honesty, qualities I valued. Rose, what a nice surprise. His voice was warm. What can I do for you? Hugo, I'm thinking of selling the beach house and maybe the main house too, I said, surprised at my own determination. Could we meet to discuss the details? Sure, he agreed immediately. I can stop by this afternoon if it's convenient. We set a time for 2 o'clock. I spent the morning gathering paperwork for both houses and the car. The thought of saying goodbye to the place I'd lived most of my life brought mixed feelings. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered Faye's face talking about seeing me every day, and my resolve returned. At exactly 2 o'clock, Hugo's car pulled up. Punctuality, another of his strong points. I made tea and cookies, and we settled in the living room. So, Rose, tell me more about your plans. Hugo pulled out a notebook. I told him about Iris's offer, the apartment in Brooklyn Heights, my desire for a new chapter. Brooklyn Heights is an excellent choice, Hugo nodded. One of the most prestigious new developments. Top-notch construction, excellent infrastructure. What do you think of my idea to sell both houses and my car? I asked. Would I get enough to buy an apartment there? Hugo tapped his pen thoughtfully. Let's do the math. The real estate market is booming, especially for a property like your beach house. Close to the water, good condition. Very valuable. Your main house is in a great neighborhood too. And despite its age, it's well maintained. As for the car, how old is it? 5, I answered. Low mileage, rarely drove long distances. Hugo made a few notes, then looked up and smiled. Rose, I'm pretty sure the proceeds from the sale will more than cover the cost of the Brooklyn Heights apartment. Even with all the taxes and fees, you'll have a decent amount of money left over. Something inside me relaxed. It was one thing to dream, another to know it was financially possible. Okay, I nodded. Where do we start? I suggest we start with the beach house, Hugo said. It would be easier to sell and would give us an idea of how the main house would go. Can I go and see it in the next few days? Sure. I haven't been there in a while. I felt a pang of guilt. Owen had loved that cabin so much, and I'd almost abandoned it. Maybe it could use a little work. Don't worry about it, Hugo assured me. I know some great contractors who can fix it up in no time. As for the car, I can recommend a reliable used car dealer. We agreed to see the beach house the next day, and Hugo left, leaving me feeling like I'd just taken the first step toward a new life. The beach house tour went better than I expected. Even after a year, the local staff Owen and I hired had done a good job. It was clean, well-maintained, needing only minimal cosmetic repairs. Hugo took photos, measured rooms, wrote a detailed description. Rose, I think we can put it on the market next week, he said on the drive back. With any luck, we'll find a buyer pretty quickly. Properties like this are selling fast. And so it was. Within 10 days, we had 3 potential buyers. The young couple who made the best offer, Elizabeth and Nathan, fell in love at first sight. It's exactly what we were looking for, Elizabeth said, looking out at the ocean from the terrace. A place to escape the hustle and bustle. Watching them make plans, I felt a strange sense of relief. This cabin deserved laughter again, to be filled with life and love. Owen would be pleased. The beach house deal went smoothly and quickly. Elizabeth and Nathan paid even more than we'd asked. My car also sold for a good price. As Hugo predicted, low mileage and excellent condition made a difference. The main house was a little more complicated. Despite its prestigious neighborhood and spaciousness, its age and style limited buyers. Hugo suggested renovations to freshen the interior. Modern buyers like bright, open spaces, he explained. A few halogen lights, fresh light-colored paint, maybe some wallpaper, and the house would look completely different. I agreed, though changing a house that had been untouched for so long made me uneasy. But Hugo was right. After 2 weeks, the house looked fresher, more modern, while keeping its character. All this time, I hadn't told Lionel about my plans. Part of me wanted to explain, but the other part, still hurt by his attempts to control my life, preferred to keep it a secret until the last moment. I didn't have to answer to him. Iris, on the other hand, was in the loop every step of the way. She helped me sort through belongings, deciding what to take, what to give away, sell, or throw away. It was strangely liberating to sift through decades of accumulated items, leaving only what truly mattered. Are you sure you want to get rid of this stuff? Iris asked, setting aside something she thought had sentimental value. "I take my memories with me, dear," I answered. "And things are just things." There were exceptions, of course. Photographs, Owen's letters, a few special pieces of furniture for the new apartment. But most of what filled our home was stuff I was ready to leave behind. Finally, almost 2 months after my first conversation with Hugo, we had a buyer for the main house, a married couple with 2 teenagers, looking for a spacious home. They made an offer slightly below asking, but after negotiation, we reached an agreement. "Congratulations, Rose," Hugo said as we signed the final papers. "You've successfully sold all your real estate, and at a very good price." I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, excitement, a slight sadness, and above all, a sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I was completely free from the obligations of homeownership. It was frightening and exciting all at once. The next day, Hugo and I went to the Brooklyn Heights sales office to discuss the condo purchase. Iris joined us, taking a day off. "Miss Holloway, Mr. Prescott, we are pleased to welcome you," the elegant sales manager, Vivian, greeted us. "I understand you're interested in apartment 92. "Yes," Iris confirmed. "My mother is considering moving here, and this apartment is perfect. It's 1 floor below ours." Vivian smiled. "A great choice. This apartment is one of our gems, compact but very functional, with a beautiful park view. Would you like to see it now?" We walked through the manicured grounds. Vivian talked about amenities: pool, fitness center, 24-hour security, underground parking. "Brooklyn Heights is designed to maximize residents' comfort and safety," she explained. "All services are within the complex, yet we're minutes from downtown." We took the elevator to the 9th floor. Vivian opened the door to apartment 92, and I held my breath. The first thing I noticed was the light. Large floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space. It was smaller than my old house, but so intelligently planned it felt spacious and airy. "The main space here is the studio kitchen," Vivian let us in. A fully equipped kitchen with modern appliances, a bar counter that can serve as a dining table and workplace. The living area was designed to enjoy the view. And indeed, it was beautiful. Green trees, winding paths, a small pond with a fountain. An oasis in the city. "And here's the bedroom." Vivian opened the next door. Not the biggest, but very cozy. The built-in closet saves space, and the window faces the same side, so the park view is preserved. It was compact, but thoughtful. Enough room for a bed, a small dresser, a window seat. I imagined waking here, watching the sun rise over the park, and it filled me with peace. "The bathroom," Vivian continued. "Shower cubicle, toilet, wash basin, space for a washing machine, all essentials. Light-colored tiles visually enlarge the space. Modern plumbing, a large mirror, built-in cabinets. Everything was thought out. And finally, the gem of this apartment, the terrace." Vivian slid open glass doors, and we stepped onto the small but pleasant terrace. Enough room for a table and chairs. You could have a mini potted garden or just enjoy the fresh air and view. I walked to the railing, taking a deep breath. From here, the park seemed closer, city noise farther away. Perfect for morning coffee or afternoon tea. "So, what do you think, Mom?" Iris walked over, eyes shining. "Do you like it?" "It's perfect," I said. And it was. The apartment was everything I was looking for. Compact but not cramped, modern but cozy, with a view that soothed my soul. We returned to the sales office for financial details. Hugo, as always, was invaluable, ensuring I got the best terms. "Given you're paying full price outright with no mortgage, we can offer a small discount," Vivian said. "Also, if you buy the furniture package, we'll include it at cost price." I glanced at Hugo and he nodded. "A good offer. When can I move in?" I asked, my impatience growing. "The apartment is completely ready," Vivian answered. "As soon as we complete formalities, which will take about a week, you can move in." Walking out, I felt like I'd just taken the most important step of my life after deciding to marry Owen. It was scary and exciting. "You won't regret it, Mom." Iris hugged me. "We'll be so close. Faye will be able to come over after school. We'll have dinner together, go to the park." I know, honey. I hugged her back. And I'm not sorry anymore. On the way home, to the house that would soon no longer be mine, I thought about how my life had turned out. Just 2 months ago, I'd been overwhelmed by Lionel's attempts to control me, feeling old and helpless. And now I had sold 2 houses and a car, bought a new apartment, and was getting ready to start a whole new chapter. The money from the sale truly exceeded my expectations. After buying the apartment and setting aside funds for a new, smaller car, I had a substantial amount left over. And I already had plans for that money. I decided to pay off most of Iris and Brad's mortgage. They deserved it, not just for their kindness, but for pushing me to take this drastic step. But I hadn't said anything to Lionel. Not out of vindictiveness, but simply because it was my decision, my life, and I didn't feel the need to answer to him. That evening, sitting in my nearly empty living room, most furniture already sold or given away, I felt a strange lightness. It was as if by getting rid of things, I was also shedding the weight of the past, of expectations and conventions. In the silence, I could finally be honest with myself. I was ready for a change, ready to step into a future of my own choosing. Lionel's call came early the next morning, just as I finished breakfast. For weeks, I'd been immersed in preparing for the move. Most belongings boxed, some furniture sold, the rest labeled, new apartment, Iris's, thrift store, dump. Seeing my son's name made me slightly uneasy. We hadn't spoken since the power of attorney conversation. He'd called a couple times, but I hadn't answered, not ready for another talk about my financial security. "Good morning, Lionel," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Mom," he sounded unusually excited. "I finally got through to you. I have great news." "What news?" My muscles tensed. "I sold your beach house and car." His tone was so smug, I could almost picture him leaning back, smiling. "Got a very good price for both." Given the state of the market, it was the perfect time to sell. I was silent, trying to comprehend what I was hearing. Lionel had sold my property. Property I no longer owned. Property I had sold 2 months ago. "Are you there, Mom?" he asked when the pause lengthened. "Yes, Lionel, I'm here," I answered slowly. "And I'm trying to figure out how you managed to sell something that doesn't belong to you." "What?" Confusion in his voice. "What are you talking about?" "We talked about this. Remember when I said the beach house was just losing value and your car was too big for a single woman your age? We discussed it, but I didn't give you permission to sell it," I said, a strange calm growing inside me. "And more importantly, I sold both the house and the car 2 months ago." A long pause. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. "What?" he finally squeezed out. "Is this some kind of joke? You didn't have a... How did you even?" "I worked with Hugo Prescott," I explained. "Remember him? He helped me and your dad when we bought the beach house. Very competent realtor." Lionel seemed speechless. "Why? Why didn't you consult me? Why didn't you consult me before you sold my property?" I shot back, my voice calmer than I expected. Another pause. "Mom," Lionel finally said, his tone shifting to the condescending one I hated. "I know you're upset, but I was only acting in your best interest. Now tell me seriously, did you really sell the house and the car, or was it just, fantasy?" Anger flared, but I forced myself to stay calm. "If you don't believe me, Lionel, call the registry office or the transit authority. They'll confirm that neither the cabin nor the car are registered in my name anymore." Another pause, but this time I could hear his heavy breathing. "Mom." His voice was strained. "If this is true, we have a serious problem. I've already gotten the money from the buyers, the full amount." "Then you do have a problem," I agreed. "Because you sold something that didn't belong to you or me." "I need to come over," he said suddenly. "We need to discuss this in person. I'll be there in an hour with Veronica." He hung up without waiting for my answer. I slowly put the phone down, feeling a strange mix of anxiety, anger, but also a perverse satisfaction. For the first time in a long time, Lionel was facing the consequences of his controlling behavior. I called Iris and briefly recounted the conversation. "Oh my God, Mom," she couldn't contain her laughter. "He really got himself into a mess, didn't he?" "I'm afraid so," I replied, feeling slightly guilty for finding the situation a little amusing. He's on his way here with Veronica. He'll be here in an hour. Do you want me to come? Iris asked. For moral support? I thought for a moment, then shook my head, though she couldn't see it. No, darling. I think I'm better off handling this on my own. But thank you for the offer. Exactly an hour later, as I packed the last of the books, the doorbell rang. Lionel stood on the threshold, pale and tense, with Veronica behind him, her face a mixture of irritation and worry. Come in, I said, stepping aside. They walked into the living room and stopped, looking around at the half-empty room, littered with boxes. What's going on in here? Lionel asked, his voice higher than usual. I'm moving, I answered simply. Have a seat, if you can find one. I've already sold most of the furniture. They settled awkwardly on the couch I'd left behind because it didn't fit my new apartment. I sat in a chair across from them, hands folded, waiting. Mom, Lionel began, clearly trying to be reasonable. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I was just trying to help you. The beach house needed maintenance. The car was too big. I found great buyers, got a good price. All for your own good. For my own good, I repeated. Lionel, you sold my property without my knowledge or consent. How can it be for my own good? You're getting older, Mom. He grimaced. It's hard for you to make good financial decisions. I just wanted to save you the stress of the process. Lionel. I leaned forward, looking him straight in the eye. I'm 67 years old. I don't suffer from dementia or any other condition that would affect my ability to make decisions. I am quite capable of managing my finances, as evidenced by the fact that I have successfully sold both the beach house, my car, this house, and bought a new apartment. All without your help. You sold the house? Veronica spoke for the first time, her eyes wide. Yes, I nodded. 3 weeks ago. The new owners move in 2 weeks. Where are you going to move to? Lionel asked, his voice shaking with barely contained anger. Brooklyn Heights. I couldn't help the slight smile as I watched his eyes widen. A lovely apartment on the 9th floor overlooking the park. The floor below Iris and Brad's apartment. Brooklyn Heights. Veronica seemed shocked. But it's one of the most expensive new developments in the city. Indeed, I agreed. But selling the 2 houses and the car brought in a good amount of money, more than enough to buy an apartment without a mortgage and some other expenses. Lionel looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. His face shifted from shock to disbelief, then realization, and finally, panic. Mom. His voice was hoarse. Do you realize I already got the money for the beach house and the car? The full amount? The buyers expect me to hand over the paperwork to them in the next few days. Yes, that's a problem, I nodded. A problem you created yourself by selling something that doesn't belong to you. You have to help me, he suddenly exclaimed. This is your fault. My fault. I raised my eyebrows. How can selling my property be my fault? You should have told me. He was almost shouting now. You knew I was in the business of selling. No, I didn't, I replied calmly. You never mentioned it once in our conversations. You asked me if I was thinking of selling, and I said I would think about it. That was all, Lionel. Lionel, Veronica turned to her husband, her voice icy. You sold the property without the proper paperwork. I had a power of attorney, he defended himself. From our family lawyer, Mr. Burton. You mean a forged power of attorney? I clarified. Because I never signed a power of attorney in your name, Lionel. Never. My son's face turned ash gray. Burton said it was standard procedure, that since you were a widow and I was your eldest son, I had the right to you forged documents? Veronica jumped up, her eyes glittering with rage. Do you realize that's a felony, Lionel? Forgery? Fraud? Selling someone else's property. I didn't forge. Lionel stood up too, his face red. Burton said it was legal. Then Mr. Burton should refresh his knowledge of the law, I said. Because I'm pretty sure a power of attorney requires my signature. Lionel paced the room, hands in his hair. What am I going to do now? The money. I've already spent most of it. Spent it. Veronica seemed shocked. On what? On investments, he mumbled. And the car and the trip I wanted to give you for your anniversary. So, you spent money that wasn't yours on a gift for me? Veronica looked ready to hit him. And now we could both be accomplices to fraud. I didn't know. Lionel raised his voice. How was I supposed to know she'd sell everything behind my back? Behind your back? I couldn't believe my ears. Lionel, it's my property. I don't have to answer to you about what I do with it. You're my mother. He turned to me, his face contorted with anger. Of course, you have to consult me, especially on such important decisions. No, I don't. I remained calm, which seemed to irritate him even more. I'm a capable adult. I make my own decisions. And where did that get you? He splayed his hands. You sold the family home. You bought a condo in this fancy complex that doesn't suit you at all. You're going to live next door to Iris, who don't finish that sentence, Lionel. My voice became hard. Come on, tell me what you think of your sister. He paused, apparently realizing he'd gone too far. I just meant that you're used to a certain way of life, he said more softly. The house, the garden. You'll feel cramped in a small apartment. That's my concern, not yours, I replied. And in case you're wondering, I'm looking forward to moving in. No more worries about a leaky roof or broken plumbing. Everything is new, modern, comfortable, and yes, I'll be close to Iris, Brad, and Faye, who, unlike some, respect my right to make my own decisions. Lionel looked like he wanted to say something, but Veronica beat him to it. Let's get back to the main problem, she said, turning to my son. You took money for property you don't own. You have to give it back now. I told you I spent it. Lionel raised his voice. At least most of it. I don't have that kind of money. Then you'll have to borrow it, Veronica cut him off, because the alternative is prosecution for fraud. Borrow from who? Lionel looked cornered. The bank? With what kind of collateral? We're up to our necks in mortgages. It's not my problem, Veronica crossed her arms. You created this situation. You're the one who has to deal with it. Mom. Lionel turned to me, his tone suddenly pleading. You have to help me. You don't want your son to end up in jail, do you? I stared at him, feeling a strange mixture of pity and disappointment. This grown man, my son, who always thought he knew best, now looked like a frightened child. Lionel, I said softly but firmly. I can't help you. The money from the sale had already been distributed. Some to buy my apartment, some to pay off Iris and Brad's mortgage, some for a new, city-friendly car. The rest I was saving for the future. You gave the money to Iris? Lionel looked like he'd been punched. My sister, who works as a gardener and lives beyond her means in a luxury complex. Your sister who has a loving husband with a good job, a beautiful daughter, and lives by her own values, not other people's expectations, I corrected. And yes, I helped them with their mortgage because I wanted to do it. It's not fair. Lionel was almost shouting. She was always your favorite. This isn't about favoritism, Lionel, I sighed. It's about respect. Iris respects my autonomy, my decisions. She offered me an option, but she left the decision up to me. She wasn't trying to control me or convince me that I wasn't capable of taking care of myself. I just wanted to help. His voice sounded almost pitiful. No, I shook my head. You wanted to control. That's different. Veronica, who'd been silently watching, suddenly turned to Lionel. I can't believe you put us in this position. Her voice was icy. You went behind your mother's back, probably broke the law, and now we could lose everything because of your incompetence. Don't you dare call me incompetent. Lionel turned sharply towards her. I was trying to keep us financially secure. I was thinking about our future. Provide security by deceiving your mother? Veronica grinned. That's a wonderful plan, Lionel. Just perfect. You never support me. Lionel raised his voice. Always criticizing, always finding faults. Because you're always making mistakes. Veronica started yelling too. First that bad investment last year, now this. Do you realize we could lose the house if we have to pay that money back? I watched their argument with growing discomfort. It was an unpleasant sight, two grown people yelling, oblivious to my presence. Yet, there was a poetic justice to it. Lionel, so fond of controlling others, was now completely out of control. I think you'd better continue this conversation at home, I said, rising from my chair. I still have a lot to do in preparation for the move. They both turned to me as if just realizing I was there. Lionel looked confused. Veronica looked angry. Yes, of course. Veronica was the first to come to her senses. I apologize for the scene, Rose. We really have to go. She headed for the door without waiting for her husband. Lionel lingered, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite pinpoint, a mixture of anger, resentment, and perhaps fear. Mom, he began, but I shook my head. Not now, Lionel. You need to deal with the problem you created, and maybe rethink some things. He stood for another moment, then just nodded and followed his wife. The door closed, and blessed silence filled the house. I returned to my chair, taking a deep breath. Strangely, I felt no gloating, no satisfaction, only fatigue and a slight sadness. Despite his flaws, he was my son, and it pained me to see how his actions had led him to such a crisis. But at the same time, I felt strangely relieved. It was as if the last threads binding me to the past, to a life where I let others decide for me, had finally been severed. I was free, not just from extra stuff in a too-big house, but from expectations and control. In 2 weeks, I was moving into my new apartment. And despite the drama, I was looking forward to this new beginning. Moving day was surprisingly sunny and warm for early fall. The movers had loaded the last boxes, and I took one final walk around the house I'd lived in for nearly 4 decades. Empty rooms echoed my footsteps, and I felt a strange mixture of nostalgia and relief. Goodbye, I whispered, standing in the doorway of the bedroom Owen and I had shared. Thank you for everything. I didn't cry. All the tears had been cried before, in those first months after Owen's death. Now I was ready to move on. When I closed the front door behind me, Iris was waiting by her car, ready to escort me to my new home. Are you okay, Mom? She asked, hugging me. More than okay, I smiled. Let's go. Brooklyn Heights welcomed us with activity, people strolling, sitting in cafes, exercising. The place pulsed with life, and I felt a surge of energy just being there. My apartment was exactly as I remembered it, bright, spacious, perfectly laid out. But now, with my furniture and belongings moved in, it was truly mine. The panoramic windows filled the space with light, and the terrace offered a wonderful park view. What do you think? Iris stood next to me. It's perfect, I said. And it was the truth. The next few days passed in a flurry of settling in. Iris, Brad, and even little Faye helped me, making it a family activity. Grandma, look! Faye exclaimed, pulling an old picture out of a box. I found a picture of Grandpa. It'll look good right here on the dresser. That's a great idea, sweetie. I kissed my granddaughter's head, touched by her concern. By the end of the week, the apartment was organized, looking as if I'd always lived there. It was a strange, pleasant feeling to start fresh while maintaining a connection to the past through carefully selected objects and photographs. Life in Brooklyn Heights was even better than I expected. The infrastructure was thoughtfully designed, from concierge service to the gym and pool. Within the first month, I discovered yoga for seniors, a book club, and weekly movie nights. You look happy, Mom, Iris remarked one evening as we sat on my patio, enjoying tea at sunset. I do feel happy, I admitted, for the first time in a long time. And it was true. Every morning, I woke with a sense of anticipation. What would the day bring? This energy reminded me of my youth, when the world seemed full of possibilities. I quickly made friends, especially with Eleanor, a 70-year-old former literature teacher next door. We went to yoga, then coffee, discussing books, movies, life. You know, Rose, she once told me, at our age, starting something new is an act of courage. Most people just cling to the old, even if it makes them unhappy. Her words made me think of Lionel. After that memorable day, we hardly spoke. He called a few times, but conversations were tense and short. I knew from Iris that he faced serious financial problems repaying the defrauded buyers. He'd taken out a loan against his house, and he and Veronica were constantly fighting. She accuses him of incompetence. He snaps back, Iris said. It's not a pleasant situation. I felt regret, but not guilt. Lionel had created this problem by his own actions, his desire to control. While it pained me to see my son suffer, I knew I couldn't save him from the consequences of his own decisions. My life, meanwhile, took on a new rhythm and meaning. I began volunteering at the local library, helping with children's reading. It reminded me of reading to Iris and Lionel. I also enrolled in a watercolor painting class, a hobby I'd always dreamed of. It was a special joy to spend time with Faye. Now that I lived so close, she'd often drop by after school, and we'd bake cookies, play games, or just sit on the patio watching birds. "Grandma, I'm so glad you live close by now," Faye said one day. "I used to see you only on weekends, but now I see you every day." Her words warmed my heart. I, too, was grateful for this opportunity to be a real part of her life. One day, about 3 months after I moved in, returning from morning yoga, Michael the concierge stopped me. "Mrs. Holloway, you have a visitor," he said, a slight awkwardness in his voice. "Your son. He's been waiting about half an hour, but I didn't want to disturb you during class." I was surprised. Lionel had never come to Brooklyn Heights, much less unannounced. "Thank you, Michael." "Where is he?" "In the lobby bar." Michael pointed. "I told him I couldn't let him upstairs without your permission, as you requested for all visitors." I nodded, grateful for the strict security. Lionel sat at the bar, sipping coffee, nervously checking his phone. He didn't look good, pale, gaunt, with circles under his eyes. When he saw me, he stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his cup. "Mom, finally," he said with relief. "I thought you were avoiding me." "I was at yoga," I explained, sitting at a table away from other customers. "You could have called." Lionel sat across from me, his gaze restlessly roving the stylish lobby bar. "It's a beautiful place," he said finally. "Impressive." "Yeah, I like it here," I nodded. "What brings you here, Lionel?" He hesitated, then blurted out, "Mom, I need your help." I waited. I already knew. "The situation is complicated," he said, avoiding my eyes. "The loan I took out to pay back the buyers, the interest rate was higher than I bargained for. And Veronica, she left me. She filed for divorce." I felt a pang of regret. Despite our differences, he was still my son. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "Yeah," he grinned bitterly. "She said she could no longer live with a man who was not only incompetent financially, but also so arrogant he refused to admit it." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Mom, I know you have money left over from selling the houses. I need a loan to refinance the loan. I'll pay it back with interest as soon as I stabilize the situation." I looked at him for a long time. Sitting before me was the man who always thought he knew best how to live my life, manage my money, make decisions. A man who had tried to control my life under the pretense of caring. And now he was in a situation he couldn't control. "Lionel," I said softly but firmly, "I can't give you that money." "Why not?" His face contorted with resentment. "You helped Iris with the mortgage. Why can she and I can't?" "It's not a matter of can or can't," I explained. "The point is, you don't need financial help. You need to learn to live within your means, accept the consequences of your decisions, and most importantly, stop trying to control things that don't belong to you." "But I could lose the house." He sounded desperate. Maybe, I nodded. "And it would be hard." "But Lionel, money isn't the solution to your problem. Your problem is much deeper than that, and the only person who can solve it is you." He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite define: shock, disbelief, maybe even a glimmer of realization. "I am your son," he said at last. "Shouldn't you be helping me?" "I am helping you," I answered, "by not letting you escape the consequences of your actions. Sometimes the greatest help is to let a man find his own way out of a situation he's created." Lionel sat in silence, staring into his nearly empty cup. Then he stood up, pulled on his jacket. "I understand," he said dryly. "I'm sorry to bother you." "Lionel," I stood up too. "You will always be my son, and I will always love you. But I will no longer indulge your desire to control everything around you, including me. When you're ready for a relationship based on mutual respect, I'll be happy to see you." He nodded without looking at me and headed for the exit. He stopped at the door, as if to say something, but then just walked out. I went back to my apartment, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and calm. Talking to Lionel was hard, but necessary, and perhaps in the long run, the best thing I could do for him: give him a chance to grow up. That evening, Iris, Brad, Faye, and I had dinner together, as we did almost every night. After dinner, when Faye went to her room to do homework, I told them about Lionel's visit. He's really in a bad situation, Iris sighed. But you did the right thing, Mom. Lionel needs to learn to take responsibility for his actions. I know, I nodded. But that doesn't make the decision any less painful. Brad, who'd been silently listening, suddenly got up and left the room. He came back with a bottle of wine and 3 glasses. I think we could all use some, he said with a slight smile as he poured. We sat in cozy silence, sipping wine and looking at the city lights. It was at times like this that I realized how lucky I was to be with Iris and Brad, with their love and support. By the way, Brad said suddenly, as if remembering something. I've been meaning to tell you for a long time, Rose. Do you remember when Iris and I offered you an apartment in our complex? Sure, I nodded. It was the best offer I'd gotten in a long time. Well, actually, he looked a little embarrassed. I asked a colleague of mine, Neil, to hold the apartment for you. He works in the sales department of Brooklyn Heights. Really? I looked at him in surprise. Yes, Brad nodded. When we heard that the 9th floor apartment was vacant, Iris and I thought of you. And to be honest, he looked at Iris, who nodded, smiling. If you didn't have enough money from the house sale, we were planning to take out an additional mortgage and buy this apartment for you. We just wanted you to be here for us. I felt a lump rise in my throat, tears filling my eyes. These two, my daughter and her husband, were willing to take on an extra financial burden just so I could be closer to them. Not because they thought I was incapable, but simply out of love, out of a genuine desire to be together. I don't know what to say, I mumbled, wiping away tears. It's the most touching thing anyone has ever done for me. We love you, Mom, Iris said, simply squeezing my hand. And we want you to be a part of our daily lives, not just a weekend visitor. I hugged them both, gratitude and love overwhelming me. In that moment, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I had made the right choice. Not only in moving to Brooklyn Heights, but in the way I had lived my life, raising children who had grown up so different. Lionel, with all his flaws, was a product of his choices to seek control, material success, power. Iris had chosen a different path, love, caring, genuine relationships. And now, sitting in this warm living room, surrounded by my family's love, I was deeply grateful that I had made my choice. The choice to be with those who truly valued me for who I was. It was dusk outside the window, but there was a light in my heart. The light of the new life I had chosen for myself.